It's Thirsty Thursday on the Locked On Pac-12 Podcast, and we are quenching your football thirst with a slew of game previews. Kicking it off with Cal versus Oregon, then heading further north for Stanford versus WSU, and the cherry on top with UCLA versus UW. All that on tap on the Locked On Pac-12 Podcast.
You are Locked On Pac-12, your daily podcast on the Pac-12 Conference. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Pac-12 Podcast here on the Locked On Network. We are available for you to listen at all times, free. Thank you for listening, making it your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Cindy Robinson, and joining me is Bryan Brown from Locked On Utes. Bryan, how are you doing today?
I feel like I've been rolling in the desert, and I'm thirsty.
Okay.
And I need a giant drink of Pac-12 football.
Okay, well, no worries. We're plunging right into all of these game previews. It's, all throughout the week we've been checking in with different co-hosts and talking about their previews of the games. We talked with Michael Luke for Arizona versus Colorado, talked with you and Richie Bradshaw for the Utah versus ASU matchup. So now it's time to focus on some of these other teams that may not have a Locked On host to focus on them, but, we're going to show them love here on the Locked On Pac-12 podcast. And that begins with Cal versus Oregon, because they're going to be the first game up this week. They play Friday, and going to get a little Pac-12 After Dark action, get things started. It is a 10:30 Eastern time game. So I'm trying to figure out the best ways that we can encourage people to watch this game, because it definitely sounds like it's going to be a slaughter, for Oregon. It's at home at Autzen Stadium. They're coming off of a bye. So here's where things get tricky, right? It's either they're well rested and ready to go, or that bye may have messed up their momentum, considering they went into the bye with a loss.
Yeah, and I think this is an Oregon team that's nicked up and dealing with some injuries. CJ Verdell's now out for the season. That's a big deal. They already lost Justin Flo. Kayvon Thibodeau really hasn't been as healthy as they wanted, and there's been some injuries up front on the offensive line. So I think some rest at this point in the season for Oregon is a good thing, especially a team that was coming off of a loss at Stanford. Chance to regroup a little bit. Cal also coming off a bye week. It's a rarity that you see that kind of thing, right, where both teams are coming off a bye. I don't know if that's part of the Friday night thing that they're trying to schedule up now, but this is and I think most odds makers and even the FPI, ESPN's Football Power Index, where Cindy works and grinds and hustles on the regular, making sure we get all the social stuff that we need. They have Oregon as a 91.5% favorite to win this game.
I mean, that's kind of obvious. I'm not shocked. Oregon is ranked at number 9 right now, so they're still a part of that AP polls, top 10. Cal just hasn't been able to get it done. They're 1-4 right now. Still haven't walked away with a conference win. The one win that they probably should have had and completely failed was the game against Washington State. Washington State came to Cal and pretty much took over. They're in shaky grounds right now. Chase Garbers hasn't been consistent. He's their veteran quarterback, and you've had high expectations and a lot of praise for him going into this season. And I don't know if he's lived up to exactly what you've expected.
No, absolutely not. I said that this team would live and die by Chase Garbers, and they pretty much just died by him. He hasn't been very impressive. He's also not got a ton of help from around him. It's just an offense that's really not playing all that well. The defense has been okay, but we expected more. This is not an inexperienced group really for the most part. There's a lot of returning talent. They just haven't been able to put it together. A lot of close but no cigar finishes for Cal, including up against your alma mater Wazoo. Lost by a touchdown, right?
Yeah,
that one's close enough. But at the same time, this is a team that desperately needs to break through and get a win. Still winless in the Pac-12. we're still a little early on in that, so it's not a huge deal.
Yeah.
But for Oregon right now, with having that one loss to Stanford, and now with Oregon State having lost to Washington State,
the North is up for grabs.
tight.
Yeah, the North is crazy right now. It's up for grabs. We've been talking about how chaotic the Pac-12 is all week. While we're talking about quarterbacks, Oregon's quarterback, Anthony Brown, hasn't been as consistent himself. The accuracy is, struggling right now. And so I do think this is going to be a test for in seeing if they can actually, make something happen for that offense, for both offenses. I do think that'll be a determining factor when it comes to like who's going to walk away with this win.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that one. It's all about clean quarterback play. I think both teams are going to try to establish the run, trying to establish physicality at the line of scrimmage this year. That's really favored Oregon. They'll have Joe Moorhead back calling games on the sideline, was out with an undisclosed illness for a while there. I'm not going to try and speculate on what that is, especially not these days. But the bottom line is that when he's calling the plays, that offense, it really does hum. So you have to think that his return, combined with coming off the bye week, that this one could get out of hand very quickly. The total points for this game set at 54.5. I think that if that's gonna go over, it's gonna be because Oregon pushes it way over.
Okay, yeah. It would have to, for it to be over that. It would have to be a complete shutout, crazy game, like from Oregon, like just a lights out type of game. Yep. And the only one I can say I've ever seen in person like that is the 15-0 game that SC obliterated UCLA quite some years ago. We won't talk about that. Those are some crazy times. Good, great old moments. But
fight on.
Coming up next, we will move up north, and talk about that Stanford versus Washington State matchup. Washington State's pretty hot right now, so Stanford better watch out. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. For those of you, while we're talking about being hot and sweaty and all of that stuff, if you have issues with sweating, nervousness, anxiousness, because I know we're getting to those fall weathers and you may not sweat as much due to the weather, but you may still sweat because of, you get a little anxious, you get nervous, and maybe even embarrassed sometimes. Who knows? But if that's the case for you, there is a product out there for you. So do not fret. SweatBlock makes amazing products just to tackle your sweating issues, okay? One of their best products is the SweatBlock wipes. I use them myself. They do work really well. They're doctor created, doctor recommended. They work for up to 7 days per use. They're a dry shirt guarantee. So if SweatBlock doesn't work for you, you can get your money back, okay? Gets no better than that. It's featured and tested on the Rachel Ray Show by firefighters. That should be another indication of how well it works. And then it's a bestseller on Amazon for the past 10 years, you guys. So basically how it works is you apply it at night before going to bed and then go about your business. Still use deodorant because in my eyes, you still need it. And then the next morning you wake up, wash it, and go about your day. And you should see improvement with the amount of sweat that you're doing. It should help control all that. That way you don't have to worry about ruining your clothes, having to take things to the dry cleaners, all that crazy stuff. If you or someone you love is dealing with this issue, then go ahead and check out SweatBlock. You can get it today for 20% off at sweatblock.com. And then you can also, with promo code Locked On. You got to use the promo code Locked On. And then you can also check it out at Amazon and CVS. I'm telling you, I would not steer you wrong. All right, Bryan, just how I would not steer our listeners wrong, Washington State better not steer our fans wrong this weekend, okay? I had to have a little dramatic moment. It was very nice to see Washington State step up, get that win at home against Oregon State, blowing everybody's minds. I know people didn't expect that. Oregon State's been one of the top teams that we've seen playing in this conference this season. They were one of the few left that were undefeated in the conference up into that game against Washington State. I am aware that this is the exact reason why people think the Pac-12 is chaotic and makes no sense, but we don't care what they think, okay? At the end of the day, our listeners know that Pac-12 is the Conference of Champions, and that's all that matters. So with this being said, the Stanford versus Washington State matchup is interesting because they're both 3-3 right now in their overall records. When it comes to conference play, I think Stanford is 2-1. Is that the case? Or 2-2?
Yeah, Stanford with 2 losses, I believe, in conference.
Yeah.
No, just the one.
Just the one? Just ASU?
Yeah.
You sure?
No. But that's what we're podcasting on the fly. 2 losses. You're right.
They beat Oregon.
Uh-huh.
They beat
Lost
Oregon.
to Arizona State.
And they beat USC. So
Yes.
they beat Oregon, beat USC, lost to Arizona State, and lost to UCLA, right? Okay. So they're 2-2. Washington State right now is 1-3. Washington State's 2-2. I forgot they got Cal and Oregon State. So here we go. They are neck and neck right now, both in the North. I do think this could come down to blows at the end of the season. So this game definitely matters for both of them. I'm always going to predict for Washington State to win, even if I don't think they got the best chances of winning. But we going to hope and pray, Right now, I would say Stanford has a consistent play that could shake up Washington State. Their defense, Stanford's defense, not to be messed with at all. Thomas Booker, phenomenal talent. It's not much you can do there. That's a grown man, okay? Grown man out there. But Washington State's defense has been constantly improving as well. So this really may be a battle of defenses. I'm not 100% sure as far as the quarterback play goes, if that's going to be what wins these games.
If it is the deciding factor, you have to wonder if it doesn't lean a little bit towards Tanner McKee. He's been probably the best quarterback in the Pac-12 so far this season through not only his first but his second and third interceptions against Arizona State last weekend. One of which we won't put on him because it was a tip ball, and tip balls are always chaotic. But when it comes down to that, it's going to be McKee versus Jaden DeLaura, and DeLaura looked a lot better last week against Oregon State. Looked like he's finally found some footing that stabilized that offense. Really what's been happening for Washington State, in my opinion, is that their defense has been keeping them in it long enough for their offense to get going. And once the offense has gotten going, they've been good. There's a lot of talent on that offense. We talked about Max Borghi a ton on here. Deion McIntosh, another talented player. Slew of wide receivers in that group, that seem at times almost interchangeable, just speedy, shifty, guys who can make you miss and can make big plays. And so that offense has really just been waiting for some consistency, I think. When you look at the analytics side of it, ESPN's FPI, 57.9% favor of Stanford. But if you look at Football Outsiders, 62% win probability for your Washington State Cougars.
That's what I'm talking about. They know what's up. That's where the faith, that's what I'm talking about. We need to see that faith. The game is going to be a 4:30, so late afternoon game. I'm trying to see, weather-wise, what we're working with for that Saturday. It's going to be in the 60s, and I'll say this. In the Northern California area, we're dealing with a shift in cold weather, so I don't know that weather is going to be concern for either one of the teams. As long as it ain't snowing, it might just be perfectly brisk for them. So no concerns there, just nice fall weather. Other than that, though, Washington State's presence, at home, fans are going to be there. The school's in full session now, so everybody's hopping to those games. Luckily for us, the stadium's right on campus, smack dab in the middle, so no problems getting to games at all. So I'm excited for the matchup. I will say Stanford against ASU seemed to buckle a little bit. And I don't know, because for a minute, they were both in the game. I felt like it was a good matchup back to back, but at some point the shift did happen to where it just seemed like ASU took over. And if Washington State can find that momentum, that same momentum that they brought in against that game at Oregon, versus Oregon State, they could very much well take this win and then now shift the narrative of the North.
Yeah, and I think it's going to happen on third downs if Washington State can do that. Stanford has not been great at holding teams on third down. 96 in the country are allowing a 46% conversion rate, whereas the Washington State Cougars are 42% conversion on third downs. If they can continue that trend, maybe even pump it up a little bit.
Yeah, get a little bit. We need a little more. Get a little bit over 50%, and then we'll talk.
Party on the Palouse.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, just for you to know, though, it's always a party on the Palouse. It's win or lose, Cougs still booze. I don't know if they still go by that, but that's what we were going by when we were there. And we had
Perfect
a lot of
theme
losing,
for Thirsty Thursdays.
had a lot of losing games, you know what I mean? And so that it is what it is. So
But this is a team that's been through a lot, I think, this season, and you're starting to see them gain some confidence, some momentum, and a chance to really climb up that ladder in the Pac-12 standings with a lot to play for. Like if it comes down to Washington versus Oregon, or Washington State versus Oregon, or Washington State versus Washington in the Apple Cup,
take them down. Oh, I better see a Washington State win in the Apple Cup this year. Y'all don't understand my disdain right now. Like UW has been whooping the Cougars in the Apple Cup for the last few years. And I've been taking L's and bets, okay? This year, I ain't having it, okay? So Washington State better figure it out. I will say they do have the decision of the Washington State governor or whoever is making Washington State. I don't know who exactly is the council, who's making the decision about allowing Nick Rolovich to, get that exemption. But that's going to be coming next week. So I'm hoping that their focus stays on the game and not what's to come, and what's to possibly happen with their team and their head coach. That still remains to be unseen. We'll know when it happens. But for now, hopefully the focus is on the game and just taking each day by day as they, go along.
as it should be. It's the 1 week, I think, out of this season where they might actually get a reprieve from all that conversation because, after this game, it's going to heat back up again, and you just kind of hope that these kids get a break from it because nobody should have to deal with that kind of off-the-field stuff as a player.
Yeah. All right. Coming up next, we will discuss UCLA versus UW, another interesting matchup that will probably have some strong implications for both teams if they were to walk away with the win or the loss. So, yeah, a lot to come with that one because UCLA, they're tied. They're trying to get that Pac-12 South win still. And UW, I don't know what they're doing right now. Otherwise, though, with the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. So why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com right at home and in your pocket. You can save time and money when using Rock Auto. So why choose to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. They have reliably low prices for every customer, no matter who you are. They have everything you can need, from brake parts, tail lamps, to even new carpet. Now, go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. You can go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. And then write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Now, we are back and better than ever. Like, all eyes are on the gridiron right now. You see, we're constantly talking about football. College football is in action. Pro football is here. I'm big on my fantasy football stuff. And as always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline continues to be the number one source for everything football. So head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Don't forget to use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available to you for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. So BetOnline is where the game starts. Okay, Bryan, UCLA versus UW. Right now, UCLA sits at 4-2 as their overall record. They are, I want to say, 2-1 in the conference play, and then
Correct.
UW is 1-2.
1-1.
1-1, right? Because they had the bye. 1-1. UW is becoming an afterthought at this point, like of the North. They're not really doing anything to make us scream, oh, UW, like all the praises that we were singing at the preseason and the beginning and in the off season after media day, it just isn't there. And then you have UCLA, a team who started off completely demolishing, other Big Ten SEC teams. Sorry, not Big Ten, SEC teams that, gave us the space to be like, okay, UCLA might be the team to really beat in the South. And now they're kind of falling behind and just kind of in the mix as well. They're both these teams are in weird spaces right now, but they're both in weird spaces to where they need this win.
Very much so. I think it's a chance for both teams to stay relevant. And when you look at this game and look at what's happened with UCLA, they've kind of adopted the theme of the LA schools, which is win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. And that roller coaster is mostly due, in fact, to the fact that their defense is allowing a lot of yards, 400 yards per game, over 300 yards passing. They're doing a pretty decent job of limiting teams on the ground. But ESPN's FPI has this one as a 60% probability for Washington. Not a good look for the UCLA Bruins. If we look at the Football Outsiders probability as well, 66% in favor of the Huskies. I think a lot of that is just to do, in fact, because UCLA hasn't really been able to stop anybody recently and really opened up and exposed by Fresno State, opened up and exposed by Arizona State. If you really go after the secondary and attack them, they can be very vulnerable. And I think that there's a lot to be said for Washington, Dylan Morris, and that Washington tight end group attacking those UCLA safeties.
I do think that's something that's going to come to play is that UCLA has been on the road, will have been on the road 3 out of the 4 weeks, 3 times out of the last 4 weeks. And so there could be a matter of fatigue there. They ended up having their bye week super early in the season to where I'm not quite sure if that was really beneficial to them. And it might come and bite them, later on in the season. And this might be one of those times that it really comes to bite them because at this point, they're constantly on the road. They've been taking beatings. I will say against Arizona, too, I wasn't too impressed until that probably later half. But Arizona was putting up a good fight against them. And so that makes me wonder if UCLA actually has the strength and power that we thought they did, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think this game and a lot of the games on this slate are still going to tell us a lot about teams moving forward, right? I think probably the only make or break game really on the schedule this week is Utah versus Arizona State, both teams vying for that first place atop the Pac-12 South, and really whichever team wins that game basically has their destiny in their hands at that point. But for these teams, I think it's all about jockeying for position, establishing yourself, generating some confidence, some momentum as you carry through your Pac-12 schedule. And right now it just doesn't look – these aren't two teams that are really firing on all cylinders. I think you made the great point of the fact that UCLA starting out a week earlier than everybody else, having to take a bye after that LSU game and then coming out against Fresno State and looking a little bit flat. It does play to their disadvantage. And so you have to wonder if this UCLA team starts to get a little bit tired, and if it does, how that affects them against a Washington team that is all about controlling the football. And those big Washington offensive linemen just continually leaning against the Bruin defensive front.
Yep. Okay, so who are you picking in this matchup?
You know what? I'm looking at the stats, and even though everything says that it's in favor of Washington, I just really like that ground game from UCLA.
Same.
I feel like it's a national game on Fox. We've seen good things from Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and we haven't really seen Washington do well against teams with running quarterbacks or quarterbacks who can run the football. I do think that this is a chance for UCLA to get off the schneid a little bit and get back into business.
I will say these are technically both rivals of mine, and I still can't root for UW. So it's UCLA. It is on this end. At least at the minimum, it's another LA school, so we'll go with that. Repping for the hometown area. But I definitely agree with you. UCLA's ground game is kind of one to be amazed by. I am hoping to see a little more. I want to see more from DTR. I want to be able to see him throwing more and getting his pass game in the mix of the offense. But I do think that UCLA is the stronger team going into this, even though the game's up at UW and in their home area. I think UW doesn't have the full capacity to close out this matchup. So we will see what happens on Saturday. That will be not a Pac-12 after dark game, but it might go late. Like it starts 5:30 Pacific time, 8:30 Eastern time. The fourth quarter may be a Pac-12 after dark, I guess. I guess you can call it that.
It's a late Saturday dinner.
I guess. I just feel like Saturday's the night you go out and you be in the mix. So it's like you're up late anyway, If any day you're going to be up late, it's Friday and Saturday. So it is what it is. Neither here nor there. Thank you for making Locked On Pac-12 Podcast your first listen of the day. It is available on all platforms and free. That's the best part. You can keep up with Locked On Utes podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast. And then follow along on Twitter at LO_Pac12, at Locked On Utes, and then at Brown Bear SLC for Bryan's personal Twitter, and at _Sydney Robinson for mine. Yes, if you're watching on YouTube, our handles are right here underneath our boxes. On top of that, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to this video. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's another way for you to keep in contact with all the content we're putting out and keeping you up to date on everything Conference of Champions. Now, you made this your first listen of the day. Go ahead and make your second listen one of our other conference shows. We have Locked On SEC, Locked On ACC, and Locked On Big 12. Great ways to keep up with the other conferences and everything going on there. We're diving into basketball season. It's here. Michael, Luke, and I went down the preseason coaches poll rankings for the women and men of the Pac-12. Super exciting time because their games are about to get rolling. We're going to have so much more to talk about. Bryan's going to keep us up with his Utes and everything going on there and everything, all the other teams that don't have a host either, because Bryan's just like our Mr. Everything here. So
that's a nice way of saying I don't have a life.
I didn't say that, he did. And on that note, make sure you stay locked on the Pac-12 on the Locked On Network.